So for a little while, we didn't really have a heartthrob at the moment. Then all of a sudden, we have a bunch. If you've been watching TikToks of Jacob Elordi on repeat, you might know what I'm talking about. What is going on, though? Today on the podcast, we are in a new era of heartthrobs. The group chat is here. Let's go. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Okay, so today we are talking about heartthrobs. I'm excited to do this because Jacob Elordi is everywhere. So is Barry Keoghan. Then there's that Jeremy Allen White Calvin Klein commercial. You can't pretend that you don't know what I'm talking about, okay? We are seeing that a certain kind of thirst is back. And I'm interested in this because I haven't seen this thirst in a minute. And the way that people are being so public about it is exciting. I think that is exciting to me. So what makes a heartthrob and why are they having such a moment? Manuel Betancourt, Lainey Liu, and Jen Sookfong Lee all have thoughts and feelings. Welcome to the group chat, y'all. How's it going?
So many feelings.
Hi. I'm ready. Thank you for bringing your feelings and your thirst and whatever other energies you have. Manuel, I'm going to start with you on this one. I think we got to maybe start with a definition here because it's a slippery term. I think when people hear the term heartthrob, they maybe think of a lot of other things. What comes to mind for you? I'm asking because you've literally written the book on this. So go off.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a slippery term, but it feels self-evident, right? Like heartthrob is someone who makes your heart throb, like someone who elicits a kind of visceral, very physical reaction that maybe you didn't even know you were going to have. So when you see a really hot actor or hot musician and you're just like swooning or, thirsting or, I also love the idea of thirst because it's like this idea of like being parched. It's this sort of like instinctual thing that your body is the thing reacting. So when you see, Jeremy Allen White's CK ads, you're just like, so you're stopping in your chest and your heart is throbbing. It's sort of like really pumping blood to everywhere and anywhere. And to my mind, when I think of heartthrobs, I think of like those men in my teenage years, although I continue to thirst after a lot of people.
Sure.
To me, the heartthrob par excellence for myself was always Ricky Martin.
Ooh,
the gyrating hips that, changed millions and millions of lives in 1999 and continue to do so.
Yes.
But I think you're right. I think we're experiencing, I think that's like sort of the last time that I can remember. It was so front and center that we were really encouraged to look at men, to thirst after them, and that men were inviting that kind of gaze. I think that might be the thing that you're sort of recognizing that might be different from years past and heartthrobs past.
That is totally thank you so much for putting the words in my brain because I'm like, what has changed? It feels like something has changed. For a period of time, it just kind of felt like, I don't know, desiring men publicly feels uncomfortable for a lot of people. And maybe I think like that was sort of in the shadow of Me Too, Lainey. It sort of felt like desiring men is like, where is this going to take us? And now we are fully in our, back in our heartthrob era, or at least like that's how it feels like to me. Lainey, who's the heartthrob of the moment for you?
Of the moment for me this week, because I am one of those like teen girls forever.
Yes.
So I will, crush. My crushes are fleeting and often. But right now I'm crushing on a heartthrob. His name is Chan Woo. He's a Korean pop star. He is a member of the band Astro, but he's about to launch his solo debut. So he's so beautiful. So that's the guy for me right now. It's, I was listening to Manuel speak and I was, thinking about, even just the term heartthrob. It's also a little corny and cheesy. It is not the coolest thing to call someone or to say about yourself, right? And I'm just saying that it's like a corny thing to say, like, look at that heartthrob. And you kind of, and it evokes like, those romance novels from back in the 80s, like the Fabio thing, and like a mane of hair in the background and someone with his shirt off. That is heartthrobby. So it's a little bit corny, a little bit tongue in cheek. Where you kind of laugh at yourself for those feelings that Mayo was describing, right? You're kind of like, I'm so embarrassed for how I feel, but I can't help it. That's what Heartthrob is, isn't it? Isn't it?
Hold on. Who was it last week, Lainey? Just because we're moving Heartthrobs week to week.
Last week it was Barry Keoghan.
Yes, Barry.
Still Barry Keoghan,
buddy,
but just right now,
we
like
got a
today. Yeah.
We got a lot to talk about in terms of Barry Keoghan. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Jen Sookfong Lee, is your heartthrob at the moment Barry Keoghan?
Well, he's like a half a heartthrob for me. By the way, I love how much we're saying the word throb on CBC Radio. That's like, let's just keep saying it.
By all means.
Right now, well, he's been my heartthrob for a little while. It's Donald Glover. I love him so much. Yeah. And anytime I see his dimples, and it's just, again, the heart just throbs. I'm going to keep saying it.
And I'm glad that you are. You know what? The heartthrob, it's a thing that we can talk about. I think the one we got to talk about for a moment, Manuel, is Jacob Elordi. I see the internet just having collective, I don't know, just like vertigo over this man. There's a lot of passing out over Jacob Elordi, and I love it.
Well, he's tall enough.
Yes, he is tall enough. Around the time the Saltburn came out, Jacob Elordi and Barry Keoghan interviewed each other in this bit for British Vogue. I want you to listen to this.
I speak like Irish, English.
No, you have a great accent in the film, though.
Oh yeah, I do actually.
Really good.
So do you. I just want to say that.
You're a really talented guy.
Nah, leave it out.
You're a
man.
really talented, handsome guy.
You think so? Because I don't think that about
I think
myself.
you're a really talented, supremely handsome guy.
Do you think I could like lead movies and that?
100% you're a leading man to me.
Manuel, are you blushing listening to them right now? Is that what's happening? I mean, like they
That is exactly what's happening. So first, we do need to talk about Elordi's height, because I think sometimes my friends and I will say, is he hot or is he just tall? But not about him, but about like just a lot of people that are like
6'5".
Like, is 6'5", which is tall. He's tall just for normal people, but also specifically tall for Hollywood.
Yeah.
But what I love about that clip is this sort of like kind of coy flirting that's happening between Elordi and Barry that kind of mirrors what happens in Saltburn, right? Like Elordi is the one who's confident, who's in control, and Barry is sort of like egging for a kind of approval and validation and sort of not believing it himself. But of course, the movie ends with this amazing naked dancing scene where we see what's underneath there. And we're like, Barry, you should feel fine being a heartthrob. You are like, you have the body for it. And it's like, you can do it. Last year for Valentine's Day, he came out with a bunch of images for Bumble, wishing us all a happy Valentine's Day in just tiny little shorts. Like, he's clearly playing into it, and sort of maybe he's like coming into his heartthrobness. But I think, as we were talking about before, there is a kind of like discomfort about, inhabiting that and sort of owning that, because there is still a little bit of shame, and there's a corniness, and you want other people to call you a heartthrob. You never want to sort of like take it on to yourself. And I think that's what he was asking sort of Jacob. But I will always blush when two young, very attractive men are sort of kind of flirting with one another.
Lainey, I think that Manuel is bringing an important distinction here, which is that, it sounds like you can be a hot actor that everyone agrees, hey, that person is very beautiful, but they don't quite qualify for heartthrob status, which is to say they're not really doing anything with their personality that gives you heartthrob energy. What is the difference, would you say, between the two of them?
I think that there are, and it goes back to, if we're talking about actors, right? It goes to the heartthrob actors were the matinee idols. And so those are the ones where you blow up a poster and then, this is no judgment, but there are the actors who are not the heartthrobs, but they get the serious roles. And there was always a disconnect. And I wonder if, as we're getting more varied in our tastes and our attractions are more diversified, then those two things, the heartthrob and the serious actor, the distance between them is closing. And in that respect is where we find Barry Keoghan. I have a different opinion on Jacob Elordi. I feel like Jacob Elordi, yes, people are thirsting for him. Facts, can't dispute that. I think that he has a complicated relationship with his looks. It's that classic, like, he's in his 20s, so he's kind of like, don't care about just my looks. I'm a serious actor too. Like, I did the kissing booth and I'm kind of embarrassed about it because like my content is really more Emerald Fennell and I want to work with these auteurs. And, all of them have been through this path. Ryan Gosling went down this path. Robert Pattinson went down this path where he was like don't just think that I'm just a hot guy. I want to make
I'm
serious
serious
movies.
too. Leo DiCaprio is the arch person of that trajectory.
Leo DiCaprio after Titanic. Yeah. And then they eventually all come back around, except Leo, in their 40s where they stop taking themselves so seriously, right? And Ryan Gosling is out here kenning for his life, and it's the best performance of his career. So Jacob Elordi has a lot to learn, and I'm a little bit impatient with his shtick. I'll say that.
Jen, what's your take on this idea of the heartthrob becoming a guardrail and a limitation for people?
I think that when people think that, like Jacob Elordi is quite young, they're not looking at like the long-term benefits of it.
Yes.
Like when my first book was published, right, I was like 30 and like I was a lot cuter and like tighter back then. And fresher. And I remember somebody interviewed me and was like, what did it say? Something like Jen Sookfong Lee has a pretty face and no sex sells. That was one of the first interviews that ever came out about me.
Oh my God.
And I was furious. I was like, no, I'm a serious writer. I'm a literary person. Now I'm 47 and I'm like, I wish someone said I had a pretty face in public. Like it's not happening anymore. But like, I think what they're not looking at is the long-term goal, right? Like when you're a really attractive young person, it sets a foundation for just interest, right?
Yeah.
And then that interest is going to evolve into something. Like Jacob Elordi is not always going to look this way. I mean, maybe he will. I don't know what fillers he's going to use or whatever, but he's going to evolve. His tastes in roles are going to evolve, and he's not quite seeing that yet. And I think that's what they have to think about 20 years from now. Having a pretty face when I'm 25 actually is not a bad thing.
I also think though it's like about who you seek validation from.
Yeah.
Like when you are a heartthrob, and the people who are doing the thirsting are essentially women and gay men. And the fact of the matter is that the audience you care most about? Because we will take you to the highest level. We will support every song, every movie, every book, whether it's serious or whether it's heartthrobby or a rom-com. But are you valuing that audience, or would you rather seek validation from straight men and therefore you have to go serious? I think it's a deeper conversation that we can that heartthrobbing is really interrogating right now, is who we consider to be the fans we value, which is why I always will F with Harry Styles, because he never turned his back on female and gay fans.
Yeah, he's never tried to do the thing where he goes, okay, I'm going to go try to speak to the men because that's where you find seriousness. That's never been the Harry Styles thing, nor is it ever going to be the Harry Styles thing. Manuel, you look like you wanted to add something there. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, because I think the heartthrobness sort of ties into this like crisis of masculinity, right? And it's about sort of like, well, men are not supposed to want this attention. And if they're not supposed to want this attention for the sheer pleasure of that attention, which is obviously what we demand of young starlets, young women all the time. And they get to leverage it, and somehow that is sort of more socially sanctioned than young men being like, you know what, I'm really attractive, and gay men find me really attractive, and women find me really attractive, and young women, right? Like, you think about like the teeny boppers, like those kinds of fans are always like discounted or seen as like lesser than or like fickle.
Yes.
And so therefore not worth nurturing. But that is a very sort of short-term kind of a blind spot, I find.
If folks are just joining us, my name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. We are talking about the return of the heartthrob. Lainey Liu is here. Manuel Betancourt is here. Jen Sookfong Lee is here. All right. Lainey, you might remember where you were on January 4th, 2024, when this happened.
You don't own me. I'm not just one of your many toys.
Come on. The reaction to Jeremy Allen White's Calvin Klein ads. Lainey, it was nuts. I've never seen anything like this. There's something just so unabashedly thirst-trappy about that reaction. There's something so unabashedly thirst-trappy happening right now. Why do you think that is happening? Are we just more comfortable with men being objects of lust right now than we were for the last 10 years?
I'm pretty sure we were always comfortable with men being objects of lust. Or maybe it's just me and I'm a forever perv and I only put a perv lens over everything that I do.
Yes.
I think it's a very specific kind of lusting though. And I do think it relates to like the whole baby girl thing that took off like last year. Where,
do you want to explain what that is? Yeah.
Yeah. So baby girl, it really kind of reached critical mass with Kendall Roy. From Succession. Yeah. And the internet started calling him baby girl because Kendall was constantly a loser and we were pulling for him, but also he kept disappointing us. And then part of us were like, all of us were like, okay, should I just hold you? Like maybe you just need to be held.
He is baby girl. It's true. Yes. Exactly.
And so Jacob Elordi is also referred to as baby girl. And I've heard people refer to Jeremy Allen White as baby girl because of his character Carmi in Beef. And so finally baby girl, Happy New Year on January 4th comes out, takes his clothes off, shows us what baby girl's been hiding underneath. And we were proud of him. We're like, yes, baby girl, we held you and you butterflied out into the world. So I do think with a lot of these heartthrobs right now who we're lusting over, there's they are exhibiting pain in their characters and their work, and the internet is not only I want to have sex with you, it's I want to hold you first. I want to comfort you first. And maybe that speaks to the times we live in and how confusing it's been and scary it's been to live in this world. Maybe it speaks to just a softer kind of masculinity that we want to see. But I think that there's something there in terms of how we are treating and associating with heartthrobs right now.
Yeah, I think Lainey's right. I think it's this idea of the hardness of those abs and the tenderness that Carmi sort of elicits. And I also think of someone like Pedro Pascal, who obviously we all know as the Mandalorian and The Last of Us, who's so rugged and handsome, but obviously there's clearly a tenderness and there's a softness and there's this thing where you just want to both hold him and be held by him. And I think it's in that. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing with Jeremy Allen White. You want to comfort him, but also you want to be comforted by those arms and those that beautiful torso. And I think that's where it's different. When we were looking at Marky Mark, he was very confrontational, even in the way that he was shot, right? Yes. He's holding himself as I dare you to look at me. Yeah. Jeremy is not doing that. Jeremy is inviting your gaze in a very sort of soft and comforting kind of way. And I think that opens up a level of lust that I think is kind of novel. Because I think often when we think of male pinups, they have always been confrontational because masculinity is about rigidity, it's about hardness, it's inviolate. It's almost like they're statues, they're made of stone and you really can't really get through them. But that is clearly changing. And I think we're seeing a sort of a newer generation of heartthrobs really blending, and it does feel sort of gender bending not in the sort of what they're wearing, although some of them are doing that, but in the way that we respond to both. We have socially been encouraged to respond to both genders.
Yeah, I think that I think you're right. There is both a hardness and a vulnerability to Jeremy Allen White in those ads that is really striking that you don't see in the CK ads past. Jen, beyond Jeremy Allen White for a moment, if we can, what is it about this moment in time that has allowed us to be so comfortable with public thirsting? How did we get here, do you think?
I think there's a couple of things. I often think about Book Talk, the people who talk about books on TikTok, and the sort of thirsting that they do about romance novels has been going on for a while now, a couple years, I would say. And it made that sort of thirst really public and really sort of unashamed and very open, which I think sort of is a foundation for where we're at with Jeremy Allen White, right? Yeah. For example. But I also think that when we're talking about masculinity and what is desirable masculinity, that conversation doesn't happen unless we're also talking about feminism or just gender in general. I think that the conversations we've been having about women and, toxic masculinity or problematic masculinity has led us to the point now where desire is evergreen. Desire is something that we always want and has led us to a point where we're looking for masculinity in different ways. And we're starting to appreciate masculinity in, I hate to use the word softer because it's not like Jeremy Allen White looks real soft. He doesn't. No. But but looking for masculinity in ways that are a bit more perhaps, nurturing or whatever it is that we need. Yeah.
Lainey, I think that's my read too. My read is that it particularly shifted after Me Too, I think. After 2016, 2017, it kind of felt like, hey, all of these male idols that we hold and sort of idolize, we don't know if they're safe in the same way that they were before, right? We were sort of learning about a lack of safety in a lot of these men. And it felt like, at least from 2017 until maybe 2023 or so, we kind of put the heartthrob on a pause. We said, we're going to come back to this in a minute, but right now this concept is not really serving us. And I sort of look at that period of time, and there was a real drought. There was a real drought of like the man of the moment, if you will. And now you have a whole bunch of offerings in the category, whether it's Jeremy Allen White or Barry Keoghan or Austin Butler or Timothée Chalamet. Like there's really no shortage of men, particularly heartthrob men, to sort of like lust after. What do you make of that shift that we went through from like maybe 2017 until now?
Well, I think, the shift, I think, also is, related to where culture and influence comes from. You just named, and I know like this is just who the culture is talking about, you named 4 white men.
I did. That's true.
So when we're talking about inclusivity in terms of the evolution of what masculinity is, I would say, being myself of Asian descent, we were seeing a softer kind of masculinity in K-pop. Especially with BTS a while ago.
Yeah.
And think about their influence and the influence that has been spreading with K-dramas and Korean influenced culture in general, and how that works on the internet.
Right.
And I think it's just shifting over to the West, frankly. Now, I think when white guys do it in the West, it's celebrated. But I do think that, unfortunately, there is still an embedded stereotype against Asian men or, their feminine qualities, so to speak. And so I'm interested to see how it gets more complicated as we talk about this in terms of with an inclusive lens. When we talk about Black men being softer and modeling a different kind of masculinity, and Latin men and Asian men, how the culture will react to that. Will we be as thirsty? Will people push back on it when it's, an Asian man with more delicate features? I don't know. I have optimism, but I am also bracing for grossness.
And I think that's actually a perfect place to leave it. Lainey, Jen, Manuel, thank you so much for being here. This has been a delight.
No,
thank you.
Manuel Betancourt is a writer based in LA. His book is called The Male-Gazed. Lainey Lu, the legend, is an eTalk senior correspondent and the founder of LaineyGossip.com. She's in Toronto. And Jen Sookfong Lee is a regular here on Commotion. Her memoir is called Superfan, How Pop Culture Broke My Heart, and she's in Burnaby, BC.
Remember that tank top you bought me? You wrote you're gorgeous on it. You took me to your rented motor car and filmed me on the bonnet. You got me to hitch my knees up and pulled my legs apart. You took an Instamatic camera and pulled my sleeves around my heart. Because you're gorgeous, I'd do anything for you. Because you're gorgeous, I know you'll get me through. You said my clothes were sexy. You tore away my shirt. You rubbed an ice cube on my chest, snapped me till it hurts. Because you're gorgeous, I'd do anything for you. Because you're gorgeous, I know you'll get me £20. You promised to put me in a magazine, on every table, in every lounge. Because you're gorgeous, I'd do anything.
From the peak era of the Heartthrob, you might say, from 1996, that is a bit of Baby Bird with You're Gorgeous. Listen, you're gorgeous. And that is it for the podcast today. Remember, you can listen to any episode of Commotion anytime you like, wherever you get your podcasts. If you got a moment, check us out on Instagram. We are Commotion CBC. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. I'm going to be back tomorrow. You're gorgeous. Stay gorgeous.